I know we're still getting food, but if I could just have our attention, that would be great. Please continue to get your food. Gotta eat. Gotta feed the spirit and the soul and the belly, right? All right. So I want to first of all thank our school board for allowing me this opportunity to share with you what I call a student-centered vision. And I want to go on record saying to you that there is nothing that I'm going to share tonight that is written in stone, is what I want to say. This is just my vision, but understand, like I told you when I was board approved, I can't do any of this without you. But these are some overarching things that I think we have to be concerned about and consider if we want to make a positive change for the Gary Community School students, families, community, staff, and for our school board. So with that being said, I want to talk to you about prioritizing outcomes for a student-centered vision. The thing that you have to think about when we talk about outcomes is how do we promote a sustained positive support in our Gary Community School districts? And I'm sure there are many of you who have ideas about how we can do that. I bet you if I ask anybody in this room, you all have a plan on what you think should happen to move Gary forward. And anybody who says that they don't, I'm sure you've thought about it. You might not have a laid out plan, but I'm sure you've thought about things that you believe should be tweaked, changed, or supported, or let's be honest, discontinued when it comes to supporting our children. But there are several things when we think about a strategic plan for supporting school districts, and I've listed a few. You have to signal the need for change with strong governance and leadership. Some people have asked me, you talk about governance and you talk about leadership. Governance is really our school board and the things that the state says that we have to do, the things that the federal government says we have to do, those laws that are in place, things that we don't get to sugarcoat or dance around. We also have to make sure that we maintain fiscal management. If we're real honest with ourselves, you know that we had to have some supports from an outside agency because of our fiscal management, and we don't want to find ourselves in that position. We're not going to give any blame, but I believe in just being honest. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We know that financial management put us in a situation where we needed support, and we don't want to land there again. So we have to be good stewards of our money. We also have to build a committed workforce and community. Notice I said a committed workforce, because at the end of the day, we won't always agree on what is best for students, but what we do have to understand is that we come as a united force, we hear the voices, and we explain the whys behind decisions that we make, and then we move forward. But in order to do that, we have to have your support. We absolutely cannot do this without the community. And then one of the other things that we must consider is that we have to maintain a consistent focus on improving instruction. Now, there are some of you who are probably thinking that instruction should be at the top. I put instruction last because that's what I want to talk about the most. Keeping the main thing, which is teaching and learning. So most of what I talk about today will be focused on a consistent focus on improving instruction. So with that being said, I offer to you this document that is actually something that has been written by two authors, and they're on the bottom here, but I really want you to just take a minute and look at it. So I'm going to just pause for a second, I'm going to step aside, and I want you to look at this document, and then I'll talk about it. So if I were asking you, what do you notice about this document? Who would be brave enough to tell me what do they notice that's important about this document? Do I have a brave one out here? What's important about this document? I'll give you a hint. It's that green arrow. What do you notice about that green arrow?
It takes time.
Say it loud, please.
It takes time.
It takes time. What else do we notice about that green arrow?
It's headed to a target.
It's headed to a target. Say that loud.
It's headed to a target.
It's headed to a target. So here's what I want you to understand. When I talk about it takes me, you, it takes all of us, if you look at this, it starts from the left and moves up. It says the support for systemic-wide improvements effective use of data, strategic allocations of resources, policy and program coherence. Well, we know our board helps set policies. They put those policies in place, and then we, as the leadership of the district, meaning the superintendent and the principals and teachers and school leaders, we provide the administrative guidelines around how we support a systemic-wide improvements. So this is a foundation. We can't even move to good teaching and learning without actually having a foundation. And then if you look to the right, the next circle talks about clear and collaborative relationships. Why do we think clear and collaborative relationships are important? Here again, audience feedback. Why would it be important to have clear and collaborative relationships?
Can't do it.
Can't do it by myself. And clear and collaborative relationships dictate our interaction, how we're going to interact with each other. I know that our board president at one time talked about wanting to start things on time, wanting to make sure that we follow processes and procedures for how we will engage with each other. That's very important. We ask that of our teachers and our students every day. We ask that of our parents. Our city officials ask that of us. And I will say that I'm going to ask of you to make sure that we have a professional culture and a collaborative relationship as we work with each other. That we have a clear understanding of what the school district's roles and responsibilities are. And it will be my charge to make sure that we have those. Will we have those on day one? Maybe not. Because we are a couple weeks from day one, right? From July 1. But it will be our goal to make improvements as we move forward. And if you look at this arrow as it continues, we get on into leadership. We get on to quality classroom instruction. We get on to the very focused, sustained improvement efforts over time, which is quality teaching and learning. We exist as schools for teaching and learning. And you will hear me say often, let's keep the main thing, which is teaching and learning. Every decision we make should drive back to students. How does it impact students? What are we doing for students? How will our students be better off? Will our students be able to graduate ready for, life? What does this mean for our students? And yes, absolutely, we want our staff members to be happy in their employment, because if they're not happy, they'll move on. But the one thing that I don't apologize for is that this is about children. Yes, I want staff members to be happy, and I will support them in their efforts, but this is about our children, and so I make no apologies about that. The next thing that I want to talk about is that basically there are priorities, 4 of them. They are in no specific order. As I said earlier, I leave academic accountability last because I want to say more about that. Priority A, leadership and governance. Priority B, fiscal management. Priority C, community relations and engagement. And priority D, academic accountability. Now, many of you could say that there are other priorities that we could put. But for me, systemically, these are the most important priorities that we need to consider. And yes, there are always things under these priorities that we could also talk about. But today, we will focus on these 4 priorities. So priority A, leadership and governance. I've created what I call goals. Now let me just say this again. No, this isn't the Stokes show, so I want to go on record saying that. But this is my vision. This is what I believe we need to have. We will work collaboratively sometime in the future as we talk about like a strategic planning, which you see as objective 2. But for now, I have to come in with a focus about things that I want to support and ways that we can improve quality of teaching and learning for our students and to improve relationships with our community. So with that being said, objective 1 is board policies. The goal is that Gary Community Schools promotes an environment where children, staff, and families thrive. An environment where children, staff, and families thrive. And so objective 1 is about board policies. We have to have board policies that are aligned with federal, state guidelines and make sure that we can empower our leaders so that they can provide safe and equitable resources and learning environments for our children. We also have to make sure that we have, as I've shared before, administrative guidelines, processes that are streamlined to make sure that If you need a question answered about something at a school, you know who to go to. If you need a question answered about how to use a rental, you know where to go and find that. You have to have processes and procedures to make sure that we are a well-oiled machine. You know, at the end of the day, whether we like it, whether we agree or disagree, this is a business, but we're in the business of supporting children, so it's an important business. So we have to run it like one. Objective 2 is strategic planning. Some of you have asked me, well, Dr. Stokes, what do you mean when you talk about strategic planning? Strategic planning is essentially where we work with all stakeholders, and when I say stakeholders, parents, students, teachers, staff, administrators, board members, community members, city representatives, business partners, where we give you the opportunity to come to the table and represent a constituent group and talk about what is it that we believe is important when it comes to supporting our children. Is it enough just for children to graduate and have a diploma? Or is it more important that they have certain skills that we believe are essential for them in everyday life? I will tell you, if I've heard this 1,000 times, I've heard employers say, you know what? We do have children who know how to do things, but some of the what we call common sense things, they're struggling with. How to get along with your friend. You know, how to have a conversation and agree to disagree. You know, and we need to make sure that our kids can not just graduate and get a good job, but that they can keep it. So we need to do that. So then I'm going to move on. We've got priority B. I'm sorry, we're still on priority A. We've got district resources and allocation. I'm sorry, my PowerPoint is there. We've got objective 3, which is district alignment. And district alignment is so important because we want to be a school district, not a district of schools. What's the difference, you ask? Well, hey, I'm glad you asked. I'm going to share with you. A school district means that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing. We're systemic. We know at the high school level what our students had at the middle school level. We know at the middle school level what our students had at the elementary level. We are able to ascertain and break down gaps in learning. We know that if a child moves from one elementary to another elementary within a 3-week period, they're not going to have a lot of gaps in their learning. Why? Because at this particular elementary during a 3-week period, there are certain standards that we are covering, so that if a child does have to move, they're not missing a heartbeat. They go over to another district or another building where those standards, those same core standards, are being covered in a set amount of time. We have to have district alignment. That is a school district. A district of schools is just where everybody's doing what they want to do when they feel like doing it, that the rules are all totally different for all elementary schools. Now, I'm not saying that schools don't have their culture, because of course they do. It's just like households. Your household has a certain culture, my household has a certain culture. We do what's best for the children in our buildings, but we still have strategic aligned resources and ways of operating that are common across the district. Therefore, we are a school district and not just a district of schools. The other objective is about communication and collaboration. This is really important to me because if I heard one thing more than I wanted to hear, it's about relationships and involving the community. You might get sick of me because I'm going to ask you, and just because I ask you doesn't mean you have to offer, but I'm going to ask multiple people. I don't believe just a few should always be able to sit at the table. I believe it's important to go out and have feedback from all walks of life in our community. You know, we've got parents, we've got foster parents, we've got people who work in, factories, people who work in government. We need to hear from all of you because collaboratively we will make this school district better. So I will be reaching out to you. And one of the things that I've also heard you talk about is an atmosphere of transparency, trust, inclusion, and support. Here's the deal. If I ask several of you in here, what does transparency look like, sound like, and feel like? I guarantee you, if I ask 5 people, I'll get 5 different answers. So one of the things that I want to do is, with the board's support and with my central office team support and administrators, is we need to give a definition of what transparency looks like, sounds like, and feels like to us. So when you say we're not being transparent, we can say, hey, did you see bullet number whatever? Did we do that? Did we do this? That way we can all have a similar and common vocabulary, and when I hear somebody talk about that we're not being transparent, I can agree with them or disagree with them or say, hey, have you seen what our statement is on transparency? So that is real important to me because I do want you to know what's going on. But with that being said, remember what I said earlier about legal things? There are some things that we simply cannot share with you. It's just a legal thing that we can't. There's all things FAPE, FERPA. There are things that we just cannot tell you about children. There are things we can't tell you sometimes about staff and their employment. And you can trust us on it, or we can send you the Indiana Code or the federal guidelines that tell you why we can't do that. But I want to build enough of a relationship that you won't have to challenge us on things like that. So I want to make sure that transparency is not seen as negative when we talk about how we support the community and the school. So now we're ready for priority B, fiscal management. I could probably say a whole lot about this, but as my mom says, we all know the elephant in the room. We all know what brought us to this point. We're glad that we've been able to make it through. We say it's over now, or how do you say? It's over now. It's over now. We're going into a new era. But at the end of the day, we have to have financial and operational sustainability. So objective 1, resource allocation. We have to make sure that we have budgetary priorities aligned with whatever our district goals are and whatever priorities we set as a district. We have to make sure that we allocate those resources in a way that we get the best bang for our buck. But I'm going to tell you, first and foremost, we have to focus on early literacy. We have to make sure that our children can read. It is absolutely a disservice to our students if they can't. It really is. And so we have already begun to put some streamlining supports in place, even at the high school level. Yes, you can still learn how to read at the high school level to make sure that our babies leave out of here knowing how to read. And yes, math is important and science is important. I come from a science background. My daughter's a doctor. My dad was a dean of a university and he was a science professor. I have 2 sisters who are pharmacists and 1 who's a doctor. So let me be clear, science is in my blood. But I know that at the end of the day, if I can't read, none of that matters. So our focus has to be on literacy first. And while we will tackle everything, literacy, math, science, social studies, the arts, we've got to start somewhere, and it will be with literacy. One of the next objectives then is a focus on sustainability. We talk about having strategic planning and having, I think Duab said we had to be in the green for 2 years and then have a 5-year plan about how we plan to stay in the green. You know, I believe in 5-year plans, 10-year plans. Those are things that we have to think and consider, and we're always tweaking. Nothing is static. Always tweaking along the way. And those are conversations that I will have with, you know, my core leadership team as well as with the board, because you and I know that something can happen in a school and it will impact our strategic plan or our 5-year vision. So those are always things that we would constantly have to be updating. However, we do need to make sure that we are supporting those multi-year long plans, and that most importantly that we make sure we have a culture that's empowering us and that's keeping everybody safe. So now I'm going to move on to priority C, which is community relations and engagement. And I know this is the one y'all all came to hear about tonight, right? All right, because that involves you. So my objective, and you see the goal there, all Gary community schools are places where students, staff, and families thrive. But if you see the objective, it's about district, family, and community engagement. We have several positions that have been just allocated to the district to support communities. We also have one online, so if there's somebody who's interested in supporting us when it comes to our community members, there's a position that's open online, and I ask you to go look at it and see if that picture is your face for that particular position. We do need your help. But with that being said, we want to make sure that we have strategic alliances between, you know, our internal stakeholders and our external stakeholders. We have to make sure that we are able to support our staff, students, and parents in ways that support academic, social, emotional safety, and well-being. We often say that kids don't learn from people they don't like. And we know that relationships are important. We do want to build relationships with our students. And I tell students all the time, I want to hear your voice. I want to know what's going on with you. But at the end of the day, I still have high expectations for you. And while I care about you and I care about your well-being, my primary charge is to make sure that you can learn, that I can get you over the hurdle of graduation, and that you don't just graduate with a diploma, but that you have a plan for your life, that you know what it is you're wanting to do. Are you going to be one of those 4 E's, an entrepreneur? Are you going to enroll in a university or college of your choice? Are you going to have employment that helps you take care of your family? Or are you going to go and have an education of choice that you want? So there are different things that we need to do to support our students and to make sure that we have good community relationships. We want to make sure that we are having sessions for parents. I'm going to tell you about a vision that I have for the school district. Now, notice I just said my vision, so you might knock it down, but this is something I would like to do. I envision us having a Gary, you can call it what you want. We can call it Gary Academy, Gary Moving Forward, Gary on the Move, whatever you want to call it. But what it is, it's a 7-month program where we put out links for parents who want to be a part of a every month program where you learn about the school district. So you would commit to 7 sessions. The sessions might be in the morning 1 month, it might be in the middle of the day 1 month, maybe in the evening on another month. We feed you when you come, but they say if you feed them, it helps us all do better. We don't want you to be hangry. But what I want to have is sessions where you learn about the school system. Because to me, when you know more about why we do what we do or how we operate, you become ambassadors for us. One topic might be about teaching and learning. Instructional strategies is a topic. One session is basically about academics. There's one session that talks about fiscal management. There's a section that talks about oversight, like why do we have all these rules? Why do we do this? Why can't we just, come and do certain things? We even have a session that talks about food service. Why is it that we have to feed our students certain food? Well, there are rules around that, federal guidelines. We have sessions that talk about transportation, but there are 7 essential sessions. We even have a session where the board members come and talk about board governance. Why do we have to have policies? How does that impact us? But the purpose of it all is so that you, as a community, you can better understand why we do what we do and why schools operate how they operate. And more importantly, you can become ambassadors to support us and get in where you fit in to make sure that we are doing what we say we want to do for children, which is to graduate the best students prepared for life. And then the last priority I have is academic accountability. Now I'm going to tell you, we could talk about this all day. We're not going to, don't worry about it. But we can. Because this is why we exist. Remember I said, keep the main thing, teaching and learning. And teaching and learning at the end of the day supports us with academic accountability. As the superintendent, I can lay the best plan and the best foundation to support our teachers and our students. We can have a streamlined process of how we want to run our organization. We can have processes and procedures, policies, administrative guidelines. But at the end of the day, teachers in our classroom teaching our students. Parents, our students have to be here. Parents, we need your support. I don't like words like, truancy. We need to make sure that our kids show up and we professionally show out to support them. Notice I said professionally. So with that being said, we have to make sure that we're promoting educational excellence by making sure that we have vertical and horizontally aligned courses and curriculums. I said earlier about high school should know what students had to do in middle school, so when they come, they have a general idea of where students should be academically, and if they're not, we have ways to close those gaps. I said to you that the middle school should know what the elementary, and we could keep on going. We could go on down to preschool to elementary. Every classroom, every grade level should know what's expected before them and where they're sending kids to, what knowledge skills they should have. That's what we call educational excellence by vertical alignment. We also need educational access. So what do I mean by that? You know, it breaks my heart when we have students who are brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but are underachieving because we haven't given them access and opportunity to more rigorous courses. The reality is, you know, we just don't want to have children graduate who are marginal. We want our children to be walk into their brilliance, walk into their gifts. Every child has something to offer to this world, and I believe that wholeheartedly. We just have to find out what is it. What is this child's strength? What is their gift? But at the end of the day, I need to make sure that they are able to read, because for me that's most important, or they won't be able to fully share their gift. So we need to make sure that we have access and opportunity to rigorous course offerings, which will mean that we have to make sure that we have staff who can support those rigorous course offerings. So I'm going to go on to objective 3. I hinted at this. Every child is on track to graduate ready for employment, enrollment, enlistment, and entrepreneurship. Employment, enrollment in university, enlistment in our armed forces because it is important, or entrepreneurship. Or some students might do all of them. I know people who've done all of them, and that's great. My objective 3 is professional supports. Now I could have said professional development, professional growth. I said professional supports because at the end of the day, we have to promote a culturally responsive teaching practices to make sure that our students have what they need. And that does mean that there are times when we have to professionally develop our craft. I have to do it. I still continually try to grow to make sure I see what are the best resources around what it means to run a school district. And while I look at that, I also have to do action research, because what the research says that's best sometimes has to be tweaked in certain districts so that we can make sure that we support and meet the needs of our community. So I want to go on to a picture here, and I want you to look at this picture. If you can move to the next slide. Look at this picture for a minute, and I'm getting ready to ask somebody out here to help me. I got a friend over here who's been helping me. Levers to increase student outcomes. Look at this picture for a moment. I'm going to step back, and then I want you to tell me what you noticed about it. I heard somebody say they can't see it, so I'm going to pivot a little bit, and I'm just going to read to you. So there's a picture of a teacher. It says teacher quality is the #1 in-school predictor of student achievement. Then there's a picture of school leaders. School leader quality is the 2nd greatest in-school predictor of student achievement. And then in the center, we've got a picture of a group of staff members sitting around the table. School district central office administrators exercise essential leadership in partnership with school leaders to build capacity. Let me say that again. To build capacity throughout public educational systems for teaching and learning improvements. That one's really important. Then, if you look to your right, there's a picture of some community members, and it says students benefit. Let me say that again. Students benefit from the positive involvement and support of the community. We can't do this by ourselves. We need your help. And then last but not least, there is a picture at the bottom with the family. It says students with involved parents have better attendance and behavior, earn better grades, demonstrate better social skills, and adapt better to the school environment. So what do we notice about this particular picture? Anybody want to be daring and tell me what you notice about it? I heard somebody out there. The one thing that I hope that you notice is that my saying about it takes you, say it with me, it takes me, it takes all of us. You're going to learn this before I leave Gary. This is it. It takes you, you're up there. It takes me, I'm up there. We're all up there. It takes you, it takes me, it takes all of us. And I really do mean that. Look at all of those areas. To truly support our children, it takes all of us. These are the levers to increase student outcome. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. This is, for me, the strategic priorities based on these levers that deal with academic. High quality teaching and learning. Most important, gotta have it. No child rises to low expectations. You have to have it. High quality teaching and learning. And we can agree or disagree about what that looks like, sounds like, and feels like, but what I can tell you is if our students aren't moving the needle forward for the Indiana academic standards or for whatever qualities we say we want a child to have at each grade level, our portrait of a graduate, because as a community, we've got a portrait of a graduate in mind. We know what we want kids to be able to do at kindergarten, at first grade, at second grade, at third grade. That's our portrait of a graduate. And if our students can't just master the Indiana academic standards, they also got to master what we believe is important for them, our portrait of a graduate. It starts with high quality teaching and learning. You also have to have involved and supportive families, staff, and communities. A lot of this you see dupes the slide before. There have to be great learning supports, and we have to have impactful and accountable administrators and educators. But here's the priority subject areas. So I need everybody to hear this. English, language, arts, and math must be the priority, but we're going to start with English, language, arts first. So with grades K through 8, of course we focus on ELA and math. English, language, arts is ELA, but we're going to focus more on ELA. Math is important, don't get me wrong. I have a lot of math folks in my family. They would kick me if they thought I was even saying it's not, and I'm not saying that. Math is very important, but if you can't read, then I feel like you're hindered in life. Grades 9 through 12, ELA, 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. I've been asked, why not 12th grade? Why not 12th grade? 9th, 10th, and 11th are your foundations. By the time you get to 12th grade, you're really reiterating things that are preparing you for college or beyond, or just for life in general. So 9th, 10th, and 11th. And we do have what's called that SAT test that all of our juniors in the state of Indiana have to take. It used to be that only select students take it, but now every student has to take it in every 11th grader. And of course, we want to focus on Algebra 1, 2, and geometry, but remember, our primary focus first will be around literacy. So I'm going to conclude with what I started with by stepping aside and allowing you, if you will, please, to look at this chart again. Can you go to the next slide, please? And now see if you think differently about what you saw earlier and what you see now. Does anybody see anything slightly different from what they saw the first time they looked at it? What I want to point out that we didn't say a lot about is focus on all, ALL, all means all. Focus on all student learning. We've got gifted students, we've got exceptional learners in our district, and everything in between. We need to focus on meeting the needs of all of our students. Every child has a gift, every child has the ability at their skill level to learn, and it's our job to tweak into that and make sure that they do learn. And I want to focus on dynamic and distributed leadership. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I can't do this job by myself. I need your help. I have to have your help, internal and external, and my board and the city. I need all of your help, even the state of Indiana and our federal. You know, I jockey for legislation often because it impacts the schools, especially public schools. So with that being said, these 4 priorities are just part of my vision about what's important. Nothing I wrote on here is status quo. It can be tweaked based on what we see as the needs for our students. And with that, I look back and I thank you all for listening.
I want to thank Dr. Stokes for coming down and sharing some of the vision that will move us forward as a district. I'm excited and ready to work. We're going to spend about the next about the next 45 minutes socializing and giving you an opportunity to meet and talk with the board members as well as Dr. Stokes. And enjoy your evening, and thank you so very much for being here this evening.